This is TTT Live. I'm DK Rosta. The Ministry of Education, or the Minister, Dr. Nyan Gadsby-Dolly, and other senior ministry officials are hosting a media briefing to update on preparations for the Secondary Entrance Assessment, or SEA examination, scheduled for Thursday, July 1, 2021. We are bringing you live coverage on TTT, Talk City 91.1 FM, and on Facebook at TTT Live Online. We now take you to that broadcast.
Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. I am Matthew Gibbs, and this afternoon I will be taking you through the Ministry of Education's Preparedness for SEA 2021 update. With me this afternoon, I have the Minister of Education, Dr. the Honorable Nyan Gadsby-Dolly, who will say a few words before we take you through the rest of this afternoon's proceedings.
Thank you, Matthew, and good afternoon to all of our listeners, our viewers, and Trinidad and Tobago in general. This press conference is simply to update on the operational preparedness of the Ministry of Education for the implementation of the SEA 2021 examinations, as well as to give an idea of the health protocols that have been implemented to ensure the safety of our students. Just to advise that all of the health protocols that apply to the SEA examination also apply to the ongoing CXC examinations. The SEA is carded for Thursday, the 1st of July 2021. It begins at 8:30 a.m. and a total testing time of 3 hours and 20 minutes. Students will be examined in 3 subjects in the following order: English, Language Arts, Writing, 50 minutes, Mathematics, 75 minutes, followed by a 30-minute break, and then English, Language Arts for 75 minutes. The exam has been amended for 2021. The time for execution remains the same. However, there has been a reduction in the content and the curriculum coverage, as well as in the number of items that have been placed on that paper. The SEA assessment framework and the specimen papers are available on the website of the Ministry of Education. There are 19,656 students registered to write SEA 2021, with 9,905 males and 9,751 females. Tobago has a total of 1,064 candidates and 18,592 registered in Trinidad. At this time, I would like to turn you over to our MC, who will carry us through the rest of this brief media briefing.
Thank you very much, Minister Gadsby-Dolly. Now, we understand that the public may have a lot of questions in terms of the readiness of the schools, in terms of infrastructure, the distribution of papers, and this part of the proceedings this afternoon will be handled by different persons from the Ministry of Education. To take you through that, we will begin with our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Lenore Batiste Simmons.
Good afternoon. The officials of the Ministry of Education who will be delivering updates include the following: Ms. Naima Hussein, who is our Director of School Supervision; Mr. Mervyn Sambucharan, who is the Director of Educational Research and Evaluation; our CEO, Mrs. Lisa Henry David; and Dr. Amanda Solomon, who is our Education House Officer. So we turn over again to those officers who will be presenting the update with respect to the preparedness for SEA 2021.
We now move to the Director of School Supervision and Management, Ms. Naima Hussein.
Good afternoon, Honourable Minister, Permanent Secretary, Ms. Lenore Batiste Simmons, my colleagues in education, members of the listening and viewing public. I will deal very briefly with 3 areas associated with the SEA 2021. Firstly, with the administration of the exam, secondly, with the vaccination process, and thirdly, with concessions. In terms of the actual administration of the exam, as previously mentioned, this exam is scheduled to be held on Thursday, July the 1st, 2021. To oversee the conduct of this exam and to ensure the integrity of the examination, the Ministry of Education has sourced a supervisory staff of approximately 3,919 individuals. The supervisory staff, which is stationed at schools, comprises mainly of teachers and administrators and totals 3,735. On the day of the essay examination, the supervisory staff stationed at schools is categorized as follows. 1. Center managers, and these are usually the principals of the schools. The assessment supervisors, who have the critical responsibility to oversee the conduct of the exam at the respective center. The assistant assessment supervisors, who supervise the testers, and the testers themselves, who distribute and collect exam scripts, read instructions, give time checks, and write irregularity reports. The assessment supervisors and the assistant assessment supervisors are assigned to supervise at a school at which they are not a member of staff. In 2021, this year, the testers assigned to supervise at a school may be either from that school or from another school. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many teachers felt more comfortable to supervise at their respective schools, and they are being allowed to do so in the capacity as testers. Oversight for the integrity of the essay examination also lies with a category of personnel known as monitors. This year, there are 184 monitors, and these monitors are officers mainly from the divisions of curriculum, planning, education and research and evaluation, and human resource, all divisions at the Ministry of Education. Monitors visit examination centers across the country to ensure compliance with examination protocol. I now move to our vaccination process. To date, of the 4,000 vaccines assigned to the Ministry of Education, 3,635 teachers and school administrators have been vaccinated. By school administrators, I refer to principals and vice principals. And on Saturday, the 26th of June, 2021, an additional 500 teachers and/or administrators who are willing to volunteer to supervise the SCA 2021 will be vaccinated. I move to my third area, concessions. A concession is an approval that is granted to a student who has been identified as having a need which, if not addressed, may put him or her at a disadvantage in writing the exam. These needs range from a request for braille or large print for the blind or visually impaired, a sign language interpreter for the deaf, or script writer for the physically challenged, amongst other needs. The requests for concessions are made at least 1 year prior to the scheduled date of the exam. A special committee comprising members of the Student Support Services Division and the school supervisors review and deliberate on these requests and determine successful candidates. For 2021, 445 concessions have been granted, and these candidates have been so informed. Thank you. I hand you back to Matthew.
Thank you, Ms. Hossein. We now move to the Director of the Division of Education, Research and Evaluation, Mr. Mervyn Sambucharan. He will take us through the physical arrangements for marking, school package preparation, and training for administration personnel. Mr. Sambucharan.
Thank you, Matthew. Good afternoon, Minister of Education, our Permanent Secretary, Chief Education Officer, and colleagues at the table. This afternoon, as indicated by the Director of School Supervision, the mammoth task of coordinating 9,000, over 3,000 persons for 19,656 students is not an easy assignment. And therefore, the Ministry of Education has ensured that the transfer of school packages, the training for test administrators, and arrangements for marking must also work in synchronous arrangement with all of those factors. In order to ensure that principals are well aware and have the necessary information available, principal packages have been distributed to all schools, and they would contain the students' admission slips, so that gives the students a bona fide access for the writing of the exam. Principals would have also been provided with the list of students receiving students' concessions, and those pieces of information would have been provided to all parents so affected. Additionally, in order to move scripts around for 19,000, just over 19,000 students, it must be emphasized that 553 examination centers will be incorporated for the housing of these students to successfully take the exam. Examination scripts will move on the morning of July the 1st to these various centers, and within the 8 educational districts, 7 in Trinidad, 1 in Tobago, there will be approximately 24 distribution points through which assessment supervisors can access their school packages containing the scripts. Obviously, scripts for Tobago will need to be transported to our smaller island a couple of days before our examination date of July the 1st, and those scripts will be properly secured and vaulted until Thursday morning. School supervisors will be managing these distribution bases, and there would be also facilities for them in terms of movement, because this is a very early morning exercise. So allowances for that movement of personnel will be provided through our TTPS and national security personnel. With respect to the training of test administration personnel, center managers, assessment and assistant assessment supervisors, and our testers have all been provided with a tester's manual and a guideline for the administration of the exam. Now, unlike previous years, we would have met with these groups of persons and have had to run through it, how the whole process will flow out. Unlike those previous years, we would now be moving to a full online distribution of that material, and that has also been provided for our administration personnel. The testers and administration, assessment supervisors and center managers will all meet this Friday, the 25th of June at 9 a.m. to have a full rundown of all the roles and responsibilities that each will be engaged. The meeting is also to ensure that all standardized requirements as outlined in the test administration manuals, and that's the order of the subjects, the timing, completion of the requisite forms, are fully understood by every member of the invigilation team. It's a standardized process. So if you are sitting in an examination center in Tobago, the experiences there will be no different from a child sitting in Iquitos, Toco, in Port of Spain, undergoing the examination conditions. So we want to assure that all of those arrangements are in place. Additionally, should our invigilation team need any further support, they can contact the ministry. An email, a WhatsApp, and phone contacts have been provided to each assessment team, and they are free to contact the Ministry of Education for any further clarity that may be needed. The arrangements are marking. And I want to assure the general public that no member of the Ministry of Education scores these papers. We have contracted the services of the Caribbean Examination Council, and CXC has the sole responsibility to oversee the marking process. Now, this exercise begins very quickly, soon after the administration of the exam. There are some preparation work in terms of the repackaging of the scripts or so, and they will be transmitted to CXC the weekend after the administration of the exam. CXC officers are present in the country. They obviously had to come in 14 days earlier in order to quarantine, go through the necessary health protocols so that they can continue their work as prescribed for the marking exercise. Marking begins, as I indicated, the week after. And it's another host of people that we rely on. CXC also would be contracting services from approximately 500 plus educators experienced in marking procedures, especially the subject area of mathematics and English language arts writing. They would also contract the chief examiners, assistant chief examiners. So those arrangements are already in place. Now, contrary to popular belief, a marker does not mark an entire script from cover to cover. The arrangement is such that persons are so trained in their particular number of items, and that is purposely done so to develop efficiency and speed. Because as you could imagine, the marking of 19,000 scripts times 3 takes a considerable amount of time. And so all of that arrangement is managed by CXC. The ministry will at times interact with our counterparts to make sure that all is well. So I want to assure that the markers themselves and all of the marking personnel will also be following the Trinidad and Tobago health protocols as it applies to sanitizing on entering the marking center, wearing of masks, physical distancing. As you can imagine, 500 persons existing in a space need to have that distance, so they too are assured of a safe and secure environment. Alongside the marking process, simultaneously happening would be a data capture process. So one dovetails into the other, and that will take place for another week or so. So we are around the mid of July. And once all scores are processed, then CXC has the oversight to upload our scores to what we call our online registration system, which has a dual function, and that is to facilitate the Ministry of Education in the placement exercise. So at any time, CXC has oversight of the scores. The Ministry of Education has no ability to change, affect those scores in any way. At the end of the day, the process for placement is followed rigidly and applied fairly across the board. So our students are given the best opportunity in terms of the choices that they would have put in and offer the school of their choice based on the marks that they would have gained. For this year, we would have provided specimen papers for students to have that practice. We know because of COVID, it may not have been possible for students to be physically out in their classrooms to experience the whole arrangement. But we have found that schools have been very innovative and have done videos, virtual walkthroughs of classroom settings, so students will not be too shocked on the morning of the first. And students are very resilient. They are all familiar with their school. However, the opportunity to have formally practice would not have been the best situation this year, but they are no more affected in terms of not being physically in school. So because teachers would have done some innovative concepts, some videos, and just because our students are working online, the practice of working on papers, timing, and etc. could have also been maintained through those mechanisms. This year, once results become available, we endeavor to share those results in a very timely manner. So once our timelines stay as true as they are now, we anticipate somewhere within the first week of September, results will be available for our students. And coupled with that would be an online arrangement to access our SCA information booklet, whereby parents and teachers can be guided on some questions and answers frequently asked. For example, how do I go about conducting a review? What do I do in terms of registration at a secondary school? So all of these mechanisms are in place to seamlessly move after Thursday into our marking and into our results sometime within the new term leading on. So I thank you for this opportunity to present this short piece of information.
Thank you, Mr. Sambucharan. So we now move to our Chief Education Officer, Mrs. Lisa Henry David, who will walk us through a bit more of the preparations that are happening beforehand to ensure that our schools are physically ready, in addition to some other matters. Mrs. Henry David.
Nyan Gadsby-Dolly, Minister of Education, our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Lono Simmons, colleagues in education at the table here with me, members of the listening and viewing public. Good afternoon. So, following on from Mr. Sambucharan's presentation, I just want to reiterate the role of CXC in the conduct of the secondary entrance assessment. So the Caribbean Examinations Council is contracted by the Ministry of Education, Trinidad and Tobago, to provide technical and administrative services for the setting of the paper, the marking of the SEA paper, and the processing of the results of the 3 papers. As Mr. Sambucharan would have indicated, the CXC would consult with the ministry, and then it will appoint chief examiners for each subject area to assist in the construction of the question papers, as well as to standardize the marking of the examinations. CXC would consult with representatives of the ministry to check and finalize the papers and these marking schemes and the general instructions for each subject. And I would let the public know that this process took place virtually for 2021. With respect to administration of the exam, CXC would liaise with the ministry with respect to collating the papers, packing them, and dispatching these question papers to the Ministry of Education. Papers are packed strictly in accordance with the needs of individual centers, so as Mr. Sambucharan would have indicated, no one in Trinidad has the individual papers at hand. They come prepackaged and they are delivered, where they are picked up by the center supervisors in the packages on the morning of the exam, thus ensuring the integrity of the examination. With respect to marking of the exam, CXC conducts the script marking exercise under the leadership of CXC appointed examiners, who Mr. Sambucharan would have indicated have traveled to Trinidad from Barbados and are now in quarantine. They have been granted the necessary approvals to so do. Further, CXC, in consultation with the ministry, would identify the markers, and where there's training to be done, they provide that training. And CXC would also make the physical arrangements for the space in which the marking takes place. As Mr. Sambucharan would have indicated, with respect to data processing, CXC maintains a computerized system for capturing the examination results. And this system is used to facilitate compilation of students' scores, which are then submitted to the ministry in rank order. And this usually happens 4 weeks after the completion of the marking exercise. And I would also use this opportunity to indicate that at the completion of the entire SEA process, CXC provides a report to the ministry and the administration of the exam, and the information provided is used to facilitate improvements for the ensuing year. I will now turn to the subject of deferral of the sitting of the SEA. The Ministry of Education is cognizant of the challenges that are experienced by our students who are scheduled to sit this exam in 2021. And having consulted with key stakeholders in education, a decision was taken to offer the option of deferral of the sitting of SEA from 2021 to 2022. In this regard, it was noted, and this information was provided to the schools and thus to the parents, that a request for a deferral did not guarantee an automatic approval for deferral. Parents were required to submit their request to their principals in writing and to state the reason that they were asking for such a deferral. School administrators, in consultation with class teachers, reviewed the requests and made recommendations for such deferrals. The entire process would have been guided by the projected class size for 2022 and the possible resits in determining the number of deferrals that could be accommodated. So, in other words, the physical space, because at some point we are going to go back to face-to-face education, the physical space is one of the main issues that would have determined whether a school could accept a child for deferral. Of course, there was an age, children who would have been 15 or would be 15 before the 1st of September were not eligible for deferral because of legal requirements as stated in the Education Act. Principals would have submitted the applications to the district offices by 17th of May, and what was submitted to the district offices included the reasons for the deferral and the school's recommendation. At the end of the exercise, a total of 183 applications were submitted, and of these, 176 were granted. Letters were then issued to parents informing them of the decision as to, in other words, whether their deferral request was acceded to or not. I want to speak to the issue of curfew passes or permission for the ministry staff to work outside of the curfew hours. So the Ministry of Education, in the execution of duties related to the administration of 2021 examinations, has engaged the Commissioner of Police with respect to securing approval for the Ministry of Education staff involved in the packaging and transportation of exam scripts for SEA as well as for CAPE and CSEC as required. And we have gotten the assurance of the Commissioner of Police that they will facilitate these activities. We have also written to the Commissioner of Police advising him of the different categories of staff required for the administration of the SEA on the day of the exam. So, monitors, for example, will be given a letter that they can work with to indicate that they are performing duties because they will be required to move between schools on the day of the exam. Ladies and gentlemen, in terms of infrastructural readiness, in preparation for the SEA exam, and in light of the fact that school plant has been virtually unused for 15 months or so, the ministry has continuously sought to keep school facilities operational. In this regard, our principals utilize the online school infrastructure management system, known as SIMS, to report infrastructural issues, which are then scheduled for action by the Education Facilities Planning and Procurement Division. Over the past few months, in accordance with these reports, roof, ceiling, sewer, floor, water system, lighting, and electrical repairs have been carried out. When works were halted due to COVID-19 restrictions, we would have appealed to the Ministry of Health, and works would have recommenced around June the 10th, and the Ministry has been given assurances by MTS and contractors that works will be completed by June 28th. All efforts have been made to ensure the safety of our students and staff as they engage in the examination process. I will say that there were 2 cases where we were advised that repairs would not be able to be carried out in time, and arrangements have been made for students of those 2 schools to be comfortably accommodated at neighboring schools. Finally, with respect to the provision of meals on the day of SEA, as per usual practice, the Ministry has engaged the National Schools Dietary Services Limited to provide a snack for the 19,656 students scheduled to sit the SEA. These snacks will be distributed to the schools on the day of the exam, and I want to assure you that all safety protocols will be observed in the distribution and consumption of these snacks. Thank you. Matthew?
Thank you, Mrs. Henry David. Now, if we are speaking about physical readiness and we're speaking about packages and papers for students, we have to ensure that our students are safe when they enter these compounds. To speak to the protocols that have been implemented to ensure that our students are safe, we have Dr. Amanda Solomon, House Officer at the Ministry of Education. Dr. Solomon?
Hi, good day, and thank you, Matthew. Honorable Minister Gadsby-Dolly, Permanent Secretary Ms. Simmons, CEO, and my fellow colleagues. Today, I would like to walk you through what the Ministry of Education has been putting in place over the last couple of months to prepare for these very exams. The Ministry of Education has brought on board a team of medical professionals to prepare for, prevent, and mitigate any possible cases or health concerns that arise in the school compounds. What has happened is we have 1 medical doctor and we have 2 nurses assigned to each of the districts across Trinidad and Tobago. Tobago has made their own arrangements, but we continue to be in communication with them to ensure that the standard is up to par across both Trinidad and Tobago. To date, in each district, the nurses have done in-person visits to each school and would have sought to complete a checklist of requirements for each school to be able to assess their readiness. It involves pre-entry protocols, entry protocols, on-site monitoring, and a protocol or plan for any incident that can occur on the school compound. The entry protocols would bar any person who does not meet the standard from entering the school compound and direct them to seek the appropriate medical attention or any assessment that would need to be cleared before they can be officially allowed to enter the school compound. This is provided in the Ministry of Education's guidelines for the reopening of schools, and all school supervisors and principals would have access to this document as they did in our preparations prior. Along with this, in terms of the SEA and CXC exams, for both exams, we have put in place a pre-entry protocol where the schools will be sanitized and the place will be set up for the exam. and there will be no one allowed to enter the compound until the day of the exam. This would help to mitigate any possible contagion on the compound and would then have us only need to be concerned about the day of the particular exam. As it relates to SEA, we have for our students a list of screening questions that they would have to answer at the door. Parents would have to provide up-to-date contact information should something occur. The schools themselves have put in place measures where each school has a quarantine area or isolation area to be able to take any person that may be of concern. We also have a seating manifest in place where persons are distanced appropriately head-to-head by 6 feet, and the students would have a register to know who was assigned what seat, and this would then be used in the event of any incident that occurs to be able to quickly and accurately carry out contact tracing as necessary. Each district with their 2 nurses has continued to form and build relationships with the team. The nurses have continued to support the schools and assist the schools to make sure that they can meet the standard for the students to be safely accommodated. Not only the students, but also the staff and auxiliary staff that may be on the compound. This has led to the mitigation and prevention of any outbreak in any of our schools. And we look forward to seeing how it works out on the day of the exam, because we have done our very best to make sure that all the preventative measures are in place. That said, each of the districts is in constant communication with the CMOH office. Now, the CMOH office is responsible for the management of any cases that arise. This includes any persons that are assessed as being COVID-19 positive or needing to be on quarantine for any reason. The nurses are aware of these persons, and these persons will not be allowed to enter the compound on the day of the examination. We continue to support our students by having measures in place for them to be able to let us know when this happens, so we can support them not only by allowing them to be on a list of persons to be notified for when they can next do the exam, but also we provide counseling. We work with the school support services to help these parents and students cope with this challenge, and we continue to try to prevent and mitigate any other concerns health related that may come up on the compound. Along with this, we have the sanitation stations, we have hand washing stations. Each of these schools has a crisis management team who is alerted in the event of any situations that relate to health. Now, this team contacts the Ministry of Education's health unit, and we, along with the CMOH office, help to make a plan then towards getting the school then ready for operation as soon as possible. This involves the proper sanitation of the affected areas. It also involves the involvement of the CMOH office in terms of the persons that will be identified as contacts or persons of concern to be on the appropriate quarantine, and also any persons that would be on quarantine and may affect the exams. We have measures in place that this can be reported to us, so we will know and assist in the best way that we can. We have continued to support the schools in being ready. They have several lines of defense in place and protocols to be followed. And I can talk you through just what the protocols are should something occur on a school compound. Should any child or staff or member of the public who is within a school compound arrive and begin to display any viral or flu-like symptoms or COVID-19 symptoms, they are to be escorted to the isolation area. This is done by a member of the crisis management team or a health and safety officer where appropriate. Still maintaining the COVID-19 protocols. If it's a student, in that case, the parent is immediately alerted to be able to transport this student to the nearest public health facility where they have to be assessed. Once they are assessed, we can then move forward to determine what needs to be done to the school. At the school level, the appropriate sanitation takes place, whether it affected 1 classroom, 2 classrooms, the entire school. The CMOH gives us consult on each of these cases and is dealt on a case-by-case scenario for us to be able to know how to handle our situation. All necessary measures for prevention are in place. All necessary measures for should something occur on a school compound are in place. and the unit continues to follow up with any persons who would have had cases, and we will do the same for any persons that would have cases in the future. Now, that being said, the schools have all the necessary things to ensure that the persons who enter the compound are fit to and appropriate to be able to be on the compound at the time. The CMOH office is in constant communication with us and will alarm us of any persons that have been identified that are students or staff maybe of a MOE facility, to be able to assist us in ensuring that the persons that are on the compound are supposed to be there, and there's no added risk to the persons who come. Along with all the other measures in place as voiced by my colleagues, we continue to do our very best to ensure the health and the safety of everybody that would be around for these exams, and we wish all the students the very best in the upcoming exams.
Thank you, Dr. Solomon. So we have had our physical preparedness. We've spoken to the COVID protocols that have been implemented at each school. And now I would like to hand back to the Honorable Nyan Gadsby-Dolly for an overview, and then we will be taking questions from there.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you to the technical officers of the Ministry of Education. And I hope the public has been apprised of our operational readiness for the SEA that is to be held on July the 1st, 2021. And you should have a clearer view of what is involved in terms of the administration of this exam and the number of steps and the number of persons that are involved. I also hope at this time that you have a clear understanding of the safety protocols that have been implemented to ensure that these exams are carried out in safety. There's a dedicated Ministry of Education Health Unit, and you would have heard from Dr. Solomon, the head of that unit, and you would have heard about the school sanitization that is taking place, and all preparations are made for that. The entry protocols, the social distancing of the students, the mask wearing, the exam paper, they have also been sanitized upon arrival. They have been sanitized, and so we know that we will be able to hand out papers that have the benefit of that process. And also, we have done, as you would have heard from the DSS, we have done vaccination for some of these SEA personnel, and we do have another phase of vaccination that's coming up this weekend for those who have come on to the SEA examination team at this time. I want to remind the public as well that the ministry has advised through our principals that the exam uniform requirement has been relaxed for 2021, understanding that some students would not have been in school for quite a while, and trying to mitigate against the need for parents to go out and buy fresh uniforms, in some cases just for one day or a couple of days. And so principals would have advised parents, and we did advertise on our Facebook and social media platforms, that students are allowed to wear branded items, school jerseys and so on, but this must be done with the guidance of the principals at the schools. In addition to that, the bookstores, this has been something that has come up for quite a few weeks, and so the bookstores have been open, the art stores, so that students are able to get the supplies that they need for their exams, and that has been open for a week now, and we are grateful that there has been no reason to reverse that decision. And I just want to close by wishing all of our students the very best. I want to recognize your hard work, as well as the hard work of your parents, our teachers, our administrators in getting through this very challenging time, and to assure you that the Ministry of Education will do and continue to do all that is necessary to have these most critical exams carried out so that our students have the best chance of success in an environment of safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gadsby-Dolly. Now we will be moving to questions, and we understand that all of our media houses are trying to represent the best interest of the public. However, we are operating under time constraints, so we're asking for each media house to take one question initially, and if time permits, we will take a second. Before we begin our questions, I'd just like to highlight that outside of SEA, we do have CSEC and CAPE coming up. And for private candidates for CXC examinations, they can visit our website to get their candidate numbers, centers, and timetables. And this information can be obtained at www.exams.moe.gov.tt. So we will now be moving to questions, and we begin with Priya Bihari from AZP News.
Question, with Dr. Solomon. Can you say whether the pupils would have to wear a mask while they write the exam, and like what would be the maximum number of students per classroom, given the constraints and the protocols? Thank you very much.
Student is required to wear a mask for the duration of the exam. The Ministry of Health guidelines have made it a requirement that children 8 years and over are to wear their masks. So yes, they would have to wear a mask for the duration of the exam. In terms of the class sizes, the classes have been outfitted to accommodate a 6-foot head-to-head distance, and therefore it depends on the size of the class, and therefore how many seats can be accommodated, maintaining that distance. And that will be done on a assessment of each room. So I can't give you a number because each school is different. So as long as they maintain their 6-foot distance, the amount of students that would fit in that classroom, that's how many will be accommodated in that classroom. And where necessary, accommodations have been made for the use of auditoriums and other school spaces to be able to meet the needs of the number of students that we have to do the assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Solomon. We now move to Annalisa Paul, Guardian Media Limited.
Good afternoon to the Minister and to the panel. I'm not sure who's going to take the question. Minister, there was a previous shortfall in terms of the numbers of persons required to invigilate this exam. And I know that process was opened up to secondary school teachers for volunteers from that system. I know that it was just mentioned in terms of figures that the requisite numbers have been gotten, but can you say if all of those persons have now come from within the Ministry of Education, or are persons being taken from outside of the ministry? And secondly, in terms of the CSEC exams that are currently ongoing, has any students so far presented with COVID-19 symptoms or had to be taken out of exams, or coming into the exam, possibly exposing others to the virus? Can you say that at this point in time, please?
I'll take this. With respect to students presenting with symptoms at this time, the ministry does not have any information that points to that. So there's nothing at this time to report on that issue. With regards to the testers, these are usually volunteer teachers. We do have just over 6,000 primary school teachers and over 6,000 secondary school teachers. And the required number of testers for this exam would be just above 2,100. And so we have had, over the years, never reached the maximum number that are needed. However, the schools do make arrangements where necessary, and where there are extended areas, that also reduces the amount. And so at this time, we are on track to have the required number of testers to be able to administer the exam. And these have come from the primary and some of the secondary school teachers. What has also assisted is the fact that teachers feel more comfortable in their schools at this time. And we feel it's also for the students, those standard 4 students who would now be the standard 5 cohort writing the exams, they would have left the face-to-face environment in standard 4. And so to come into the school and see some familiar faces, we think this also will be a help and a comfort for the students. Of course, the standard 4 and 5 teachers will not be involved as testers at their own schools, because certainly we want to use the other pool of teachers to ensure that there's no issue in terms of integrity. And so that is where we are at this point. We are well on track to having the required number of testers for the examination.
Thank you very much, Minister. We now move to Renessa Cutting, CCN TV6.
Good afternoon. Now, indicate that there are safety protocols in place, but could we have a bit of a walkthrough, so to speak, as parent or parents are at, and given that there will be some screening being done, I'm imagining that this could probably...
Ms. Cutting, your
It's the
audio
same
cut
topic,
off
is
at one
it? I
point.
just
Can you repeat your question, please?
okay. Fire.
Ms. Cutting, we will have to come back to you as we work out
The student and their work.
audio difficulties. We now move to Rihanna McKenzie, Newsday newspapers.
Good afternoon, everyone. Rihanna McKenzie here from Newsday. My question is, I know you mentioned the vaccination rollout for invigilators. Just to clarify, can you give an idea of how many of the identified invigilators have been vaccinated thus far? Thank you.
If we're speaking about the testers and those that have come from the teaching pool, it should be just about 1,100 or just them thereabouts, based on those who had identified themselves to be working for the SE at the time of that rollout. So the additional 500 will be applied to those who have come on board with regards to volunteering for administration of the SE exam.
Thank you, Minister. We will now try again with Renessa Cutting.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yes, Renessa, we hear you now.
Okay, great. I said the ministry did indicate that there will be safety protocols in place, but could we have a bit of a walkthrough as to exactly what will transpire when the student shows up at the gate with their parent or parents? What are the actual procedures at that point? And I'm thinking this may cause a bit of a queue at the gate. So I'd like to know also what time does the ministry advise students to turn up for the exam?
Thank you, Ms. Cutting. I will pass this question over to Dr. Solomon.
Hi, and thank you for your question, Ms. Cutting. We are asking parents to be reasonable and be present at least an hour before the exam. We understand that we would not want to encourage congregation outside of the school by students or by parents. Once a parent arrives with their child, they would be shuttled to the entry point of the school. Here, they will have temperature checks that will be recorded. The parents' contact information will also be verified. We are also asking them to answer some screening questions that would give us an idea of what kind of history they may have in terms of any personal risk of being on the compound. And we encourage parents to prepare children for this process. Should they not meet the entry protocols, they will be turned away from being able to do the exam. We encourage you to ensure these children are prepared and have their masks, that they have their own personal hand sanitizer, and any other hygiene, accessories that you may think necessary for their own personal use. Once they are in the school compound, they would have to follow a pathway to their classroom, their assigned seat. Like I mentioned before, we have a seating manifest, so they'll be assigned a particular seat. And once they are in for their exam, the teacher will be present as well to conduct the exam. There'll be a 6-foot distance in place. And should they have to use the bathroom or anything, they would of course have to inform the examiner, just as for any other exams that would have been conducted. And they will be assisted in an appropriate manner to the bathroom or to any other place that they need to be. Like I said before, should any incident arise where a child is in need of being in the isolation area, we have that protocol in place as well. But it is nothing that should encourage a pew, and we do not encourage persons to congregate outside or inside of the school compound at any time. Once a child completes the exam, we are asking parents to please be prompt to come and have your child taken home, so that we do not have the congregation of the students. We know it's been a while since they've seen each other, and it may lead to them wanting to gather. And we know at this time that we would not want them to do so on the school compound or outside the school compound. So we ask that you would cooperate with the security staff, the teaching staff, to have them operate in a manner that is appropriate, and also to see that they can get into the school safely and get back to you safely.
Thank you, Dr. Solomon. We move to Leah Sorayas, Express newspaper.
Good afternoon, Minister and other members of the panel. My question is,
I'm trying to get an idea of where students will be during the 30-minute break. Are they to remain in their seats in the classroom or will be allowed outside?
Depending on the makeup of the school, students can be allowed outside. Of course, the importance is always the supervision to ensure that there is no congregation. So students can be allowed, and I can say in the guidelines that are sent out, we do allow students to have their lunches and so on in the classroom. That is based on how schools are operating between February and April. And so different schools are allowed to let their students come outside, take a stretch, but certainly in groups, supervised so that there's no congregation, have their snack and so on. So that is allowed, and the school can certainly use that group method so that the students get a chance to stretch their legs and so on.
Thank you, Minister. We move to Rai Rekomas, 101 FM.
Hi, good afternoon. Rai Rekomas from 103.1 FM. I just have a question regarding the marking process with CXC being involved. Could you tell me how, if at all, does it differ from marking process that would have been used in SCAs gone by? Thank you.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Sambucharan, but just to say that CXC has been involved in the process for quite a few years, and so I'll allow Mr. Sambucharan to elaborate on that.
The marking process in previous years is really no different from this year. Last year when we did this exercise under similar conditions, CXC was able to manage their marking centers by suitably making sure that their markers were separated into larger spaces to facilitate the social distancing, etc. So the marking process is no different. Each script will be marked by multiple markers marking different sections of a paper. And each table of markers is a small number, just around 6, is managed by a table leader that oversees all of these marks subscribed to each to each script. Now, once that is shuttled through one category of items, and it is boxed over to another room whereby the other items are so marked. So it continues along that round table kind of process. Unlike previous years, the creative writing paper, however, has adopted for this year the item being focused on only one type of writing. And for this year, narrative writing for creative writing will be the focus that the students will be engaged in. Again, similar to previous years, the particular creative writing piece is marked by 2 different markers, each ascribing a mark from 1 to 10, and that is combined over 2 markers, and you get the composite score for creative writing paper. Once the paper for mathematics and English language arts go through its round robin exercise, that mark is tabulated on the cover of each script. Those scripts are moved over to the data capture processing, and those marks are harnessed there and processed further off-site for CXC they do that at Barbados, managed there, processed, and then uploaded to the online registration system. So to answer your question, we have very little deviation from years previous.
Thank you, Mr. Sambucharan. Okay, we have covered all of the media houses. With our first question, we want to hand back to Minister of Education, Dr. the Honorable Nyan Gadsby-Dolly, for a small announcement before we move to close.
A student is displaying symptoms and cannot do the exam on the day, July 1st, and this applies to the SEA, or if they are in quarantine and therefore cannot be allowed onto the school compound, the make-up date for the SEA exam is July the 21st. So parents would have to be in contact with the principals and indicate the circumstances so that students can be accommodated for the makeup exam for the SEA. For the CXE, there is not a makeup exam in the same sitting, and therefore if a student is similarly circumstanced, they have their primary contact, they cannot come to the compound, or they do contract the virus, then they would have to do the exam at the next available sitting, which may be either in January or in June, depending on the subject. So I just wanted to add that so that parents and teachers are very clear about what will happen in those circumstances.
All right, Minister. We have one media house that we did not cover, coincidentally, that is TTT. We have Sunil Lala.
Good afternoon. Actually, that was the question that the Minister just answered my question there. But just to move on to that, if a student actually comes up with symptoms and they are to be transferred to the isolation unit, would they then be able to write the exam in there, or are they just in isolation?
No, they would just be in isolation. We'd have to just remove them from the exam. In some cases, depending, if there may be a possibility to move to a separate room, but that all depends on if there's a tester available and that type of thing. So chances are that if a student begins to display symptoms in the middle of an exam, they will not be able to finish that exam.
Thank you, Minister. We have at this time, unfortunately, run out of time. We understand that there are many questions that may still be coming from the public or media houses. We advise that the guidelines for the operating of schools is online, available at the ministry's website, moe.gov.tt, and all of the information on what will be happening on SEA Day and during the CSEC and CAPE exams are available. I want to reiterate that for private candidates, you can access all of your exam information at exams.moe.gov.tt. Further updates will be shared on the ministry's social media and website as the week progresses, and if there's anything that the ministry needs to share. We thank you for joining the Ministry of Education this afternoon, and we look forward to appraising you as time passes if there's anything additional that you need to know. Have a good afternoon.
This is TTT. Live for